Hello and welcome to, I guess, video 3 of my game dev series on Undungeons. So this time I've got slightly fewer changes to show, though hopefully they're just as exciting, partially because I had to do some major refactoring of the main character script, or rather, sorry, the enemy script, as some of the movement turned out to be a bit buggier than I would have liked, and so I've implemented a slightly less optimal but more reliable way of things moving. We're still checking to see where the enemy is in relation to the player, so you can see here the enemy is behind the player, the enemy is in front of the player, etc, etc. Um, and yeah, directly to the left. But once it does figure out where the player is, rather than do a mathematical equation to figure out whether they should be turning left or right to look at the player faster, because that gave slightly unreliable results, made this new method called probe direction, which accepts a number, which is the desired rotation. So if you remember, the rotation of the enemy is in increments of 8, so it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 6 in this case would be down and to the left. And so what it does is in this probe direction method, it goes through a for loop checking how many steps it would take if it were to turn right and how many steps it would take if it were to turn left, and then returns a Boolean value, either false or true, depending on whether it's right or left. So true is right, left is false. And then based on that value, it then rotates in the direction, so you can see if 45 degrees or 315 degrees. And yeah, adjust the direction counter, and so on. The rest of it behaves the way that it looked like last time, it just has less bugs. So what's new? Well, it's a little bit harder to show off, because it can't actually be seen in the scene, but if you notice, now that there's a wall in between the character, you won't be able to see it. In fact, maybe I will change the camera so that you can. Let's game camera. Okay, let's have a look at this. And we'll do a little bit of rotation. There we go, that should do the trick. You can see here, my character is turning, but the zombie is not moving, which is not what used to be the case before. However, if I appear around this corner, you can see it sort of locks onto me and starts to chase. Then, as you can see here, it's sort of turned around again, and now it's seen me behind here and is starting to chase me here. So what is actually going on? Well, if I switch to the scene view, you can see here each one of these blue lines is a raycast that happens from the enemy's perspective, or from the enemy's position, towards where the player is standing. So what's happening is basically it's checking to see whether it has line of sight on the player. I'll show that off again here. So if I do make the player go right, you can see in the scene vision, it's trying to see the player, but there's a wall in the way. As soon as the player arrives over here, it should be able to, yep. As soon as it has a direct line without any interruptions to the player, it updates the register. Now, the reason why after this happens, it doesn't just chase the player through the wall, why it goes to the last place it saw the player go, is because I felt like that would be more reflective of zombie behavior, rather than having some sort of omniscient knowledge of where the player is at any given time. What happens is you can see there is this object, which is invisible, but it's called the chase spot, and it has a line to where the player is. Now, if I go back to the game and I hide the player behind the wall, oh, actually this may not have worked. Give me 1 second. Right. So you can see here, the last place the zombie saw the player was this location here. And so rather than chase the player, what it's doing is chasing the last known location of the player, now represented by this red diamond. Now if I continue the game, as soon as, let's see, no, you can't see me yet. Yeah, as soon as it has line of sight on me, you can see it's updated the location. So if I move this cube out of the way temporarily, you can see the location where the player last was has been updated to that, and it is now chasing that location. You can see that reflected in this script here. So essentially, in the main loop, the update loop, let's have a look for it. In the act loop, which is being called every time the player presses a key, the first thing that happens is it checks whether the enemy has been killed. The second thing that happens is we have this check vision. Now there's an empty if statement here because the check vision returns a true or false based on whether it has or has not seen the player, and I expect to be doing things with it later, but nothing for now. So it runs the check vision method. The check vision method says, so it creates array, or raycast hit an array that goes from the current position to the player's position minus the current position. So what this means is it's doing the difference between the player's location and the enemy's location. So it's a line between them. And this is just a debug line so that we can actually see the rays on the scene viewer. And then it actually raycasts, sees whether the landing ray or rather shoots the ray and retrieves the output of the ray as stored as the variable hit, which is the raycast hit, and it checks, okay, did the hit collide with something that has the tag main character? If yes, then it does a little debug line to help me, and then it updates the chase spot. Now the chase spot is a variable up here, vector3, which basically just informs the game of the last location that the main character was seen. It updates it here if the zombie then stops being able to see the main character. This will obviously no longer be updated. So the chase spot will remain the same as it was the last time the player was seen. And this is just, again, just a testing thing so that you can see this is where the chase spot currently is. But if you see in my movement algorithm, or rather my rotation algorithm, we go, so to check whether the enemy is to the left of the player, we go transformed position.x, and it used to be the case that it was the main character position.x, but we no longer care about that because we're not chasing the main character, we're chasing the chase spot. So instead we check the chase spot.x, we do the same for the z, and then we apply the necessary rotations once we've figured out where the enemy is in relation to the main character. That's it so far. If I, just to demonstrate, remove this wall, the enemy can immediately see me, and movement still works as normal. It chases the character to the best of its ability, albeit a little bit dumbly because it's a zombie, and camera movement still behaves in the same way. So that's it for this update. Hopefully I will have more to show in the next.